Hi, today we're going to talk about the Red Sea. Basically, you may have heard in the last couple of months, should I say, that the Houthis, a rebel group in Yemen, have been attacking shipping connected to Israel, but I think they're even doing it more broadly now. Basically, shipping that's connected to Israel for sure, in order to kind of make a protest as to what's happening in Gaza at the moment and the inhumanity and just the terrible situation ongoing there. So it was kind of an act of solidarity with the people in Gaza and trying to draw attention basically to what's going on there. And they have certainly drawn attention of the world because the entire world kind of, especially Europe and for China specifically, really rely on the Red Sea and on the Suez Canal as a way of bringing goods efficiently and at a good cost and relatively safe route from here to there, basically. Also, a lot of oil from the Saudis flows through here as well. So, pretty big statement to be attacking boats in this region. And there's a couple of things that this means. One is that insurance rates are going to go up. And if insurance rates go up, then products become more expensive all over the world, basically. Not so much maybe the USA, but definitely for the ones sending products from here to there. Um, the thing that's happened this week is that a boat has actually been sank. This is yeah, basically they sank a boat that had fertilizer on it. Fertilizer is a product that is used to bring fertility to soil, basically because our fields are becoming less and less fertile. We need more and more fertilizer to keep them in a position to generate food. And why is fertilizer so important? Well, if you've ever heard of the Malthusian trap, it's an idea that as population grows, the food supply doesn't grow with it, and therefore we end up starving. That's an idea that was, I don't know, around, I don't know what year, probably some sort of 1800s here. What year? It's 1798 when Thomas Robert Malthus came up with the Malthusian trap theory. The idea basically being that if you have a food supply that increases at a linear rate, it will not keep up with a population that increases at a exponential rate. And this is very easy to think of. If you have one extra field and you grow a bit more food, it's the input is like, okay, you put in one extra bag of seeds, you get two extra bags of food back out of it, something like that. It's kind of a 1-to-1 ratio. It doesn't increase exponentially like population, where if you have 6 children and then they have 6 children and they have 6 children, the rate just goes up so quickly. And we've been able to escape this kind of death scenario through using fertilizers and technology, basically. And that's why fertilizers are very important, and why being able to ship them around the world is also quite important. And you can see kind of some hysteria about, well, do we only have 60 years left in our fields, even with fertilizers? Will it work? And some people say it's a myth. Some people say it's true. Obviously we haven't fallen to famine across the entire world yet, but if it does happen, countries like, I suppose, Brazil, which imports a lot of their fertilizer for all of their production, would have famines, places like that. So fertilizer, it is important, but not really the main point of this story. But the fact that so much fertilizer was sank in the Red Sea is significant, and let me show you why. Um, as fertilizer is released into the water, it kind of dissolves and it kind of spreads really far, and it's a very concentrated mixture. It's a bit like when you're making hot chocolate, you put in this much powder and the entire thing goes brown. Very similar idea, and it's basically reduces the oxygen content of the water. It changes the local environment. It's bad for marine life, and fungus, should I say, algae can grow and create what this article says are dead zones, basically areas where no life can live anymore, and that's what they're calling an ecological disaster. Yeah, quite important. Let me quickly talk to you about the amount of ships that have been targeted, let's say. Why is this happening? Well, one theory is that they aren't being protected enough via patrols. The US Navy has got a fleet of 300 deployable combat vessels, but they're mostly designed to support supercarriers. I had a picture of supercarriers up here somewhere. I might just get another one up. Supercarriers, basically, I'm sure you all know about USA supercarriers. I think the US has got, how many supercarriers do they have? How many? Just quickly see how many they have before I show you a picture of them. 11. Okay, yeah, cool. I think that's more than the entire world combined or something. Basically, they're these massive floating cities. I think they're almost unsinkable unless you throw an atomic bomb onto them. I once saw a aircraft carrier being sank on purpose, and it was by a demolition crew, and it was an old one that they didn't need anymore, and they had to basically just spend months and months and months making holes into the thing so they would actually sink properly. They're just so they're built in a way that they have pockets of air all over the place. They're built in kind of a grid system. At least that version of a carrier was. It's a bit like with the idea with the Titanic, that the Titanic was meant to be unsinkable because it had been split into 11 odd sections. Why was the Titanic unsinkable? Apologies for my spelling, but they might just show us a diagram of this. Look at that. So the Titanic was split into, okay, a lot more than, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 8 bit word 11. A lot of different compartments, and they were split by these metal walls. And the point being, okay, well, if you have a hole here and it fills with water, sure, you've only filled a tiny bit of the boat and you're going to be fine. The boat will never sink. Issue was in the day that for some reason loads of these compartments got ruptured when the iceberg scraped along the side of it, and therefore they filled with water, many more filled than was previously planned for. And therefore the Titanic sank, and there she is now probably. But with supercarriers, yeah, you can imagine that system with those sections, but just infinitely more complex and a lot more safer. So supercarriers need a lot of support backup because they're very slow things. And yeah, of those 300 US ships, yeah, you can say that a lot of them are just there to support supercarriers. That's kind of the way the Navy's gone, apparently. And they're not designed, there's only 11 of these fleets. USA supercarrier fleet support. Yeah, you can kind of visualize it like that. A carrier battle group. Okay, not a great image, but you can kind of probably see it there when it zooms out. Yeah, there you go. I don't know if it's that a modern one or not, but they're not designed to be in many places at one time. There only are 11 of these things, and maybe they've got smaller carriers too, but they can't be patrolling every part of the Red Sea or every part of the world to be supporting shipping and to protect it from the Houthis. So the idea that the USA would expand its fleet to have more destroyers to defend global shipping, you would think would make sense. But if you were to go over to Washington and say, okay, let's go and spend, spend $1 trillion on building more destroyers, like, yeah, but why? To protect China's shipping? Because that's basically what this is. This is China, the so-called rival of the USA, their biggest rival, direct rival. I don't know, is it Russia or China? But to spend money, for the US to spend money to protect their shipping from here to Europe. Because any shipping that China does to the USA can go to the USA this way via the Panama Canal. So, yeah, there's not going to be anybody shooting at it on this leg. And the USA can defend whatever it needs to defend in its own area, you could say, its own sphere of influence in this region. So the Houthis aren't really the priority. Speaking of canals, the Panama Canal's also had issues lately. Come here and look at the Panama Canal. Very interesting, the geography. So you can see going there, up through there, through here, into this big wide area of lakes, which I believe were actually flooded to increase them, in order to increase the way the canal was going to work, how easy it was going to be for it to operate. And when they were designing the canal, it was designed in a system where you need to have water at the top, and then it can fill up the locks on the way down. And that water is reducing with climate change, probably, and just different conditions. There's less water for that canal to operate properly, and I believe they've had big issues. Again, here is a demonstration. The boat comes in, the door closes behind it, water from the top fills in, the boat rises up, and it repeats until you get to the top of the mountain and back down again. And yeah, of course, 30,000 people did die in the building of the Panama Canal back in the day. I think a lot of French were also involved in their attempt to build the canal. Either way, loads of people did die due to illnesses, to the mosquito, things like that. Very big issue at the time, and probably a lot of locals too, especially when you flood a region like this. Yeah, not the prettiest operation, but it's there now. But it's not working that well anymore. Panama Canal issues, and I believe they've got a lot of issues with extreme drought. So yeah, they've had to scale back shipping through the Panama Canal. So now you've got an issue when Suez has issues, the Panama Canal's got issues. This is all going to push up global shipping prices. and insurance rates. And yeah, I think was it this one they were talking about how some rates had gone from $1,700 in December, just in December actually, to 3,600 a few weeks later. So crazy difference. Yeah, very important to keep in mind that if you are getting goods and suddenly they're more expensive in Europe, that could be a big reason why. Just a point I wanted to make about why the USA mightn't care so much to protect those shipping routes. USA is very self-sufficient within NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. If tomorrow China disappeared, Europe disappeared, they could do it very well with just the economic base that they have. In my opinion, the US economy is in a very strong place long term. People say the dollar could be having an issue. I don't really think so. We look here, China is the biggest trade partner there, but then next is Mexico, Canada, and 12 and 13%, and the next ones are only 5%, 4%. So yeah, they wouldn't be that badly off if they had to suddenly like rely purely on their own domestic kind of area, if we include Mexico as part of that. And I wanted to give just one last look at some different insurance rates here. People saying costs of insurance rises by 2,700%. So yeah, up to 1% of the value of a ship, which is apparently war risk premium. So pretty crazy. Last things I wanted just to touch on. Oh yeah, here again, it's just the ship being sunk or in the process of sinking. I think just to look at that one more time is important to understand what is going on to get the massive infrastructure, and is the 21st century being attacked by basically, yeah, rebels, or you can basically call it piracy to a degree. Pretty crazy. Last thing I wanted to say was also some internet cables have been cut in the Red Sea, and this has led to over 25% of internet traffic between Asia and Europe and the Middle East being impacted, and that's a pretty big deal. Internet is like the modern artery of the world. It's like the blood. Without it, nothing really works in the way it used to. Imagine when you turn off the Wi-Fi in your house and your family relies on it, how crazy everybody will go within a couple of days, just because we need it for work, we need it for studies, it's for socializing, etc. It's become a part of our life. Maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know, but definitely internet cables being cut in the Red Sea, probably by the Houthis, who knows, is a big deal. And the company who was responsible for it, a South African company called Seacom, I believe, said it could take over a month before that could be even prepared. Be getting prepared to be repaired. So that's quite a big deal too, and quite a statement. And again, assuming if it was the Houthis, it is all in the context of, look what's happening in Gaza. Please stop what's happening in Gaza, and we will stop what we're doing here too. I believe that's the message, and a very novel message in a sense, because no one else is doing anything about Gaza. Something has to happen, and if it means disrupting shipping and increasing prices, that's probably a friendlier way of doing it than killing people. So hopefully the message comes across and these things stop, and yeah, hopefully things can go back to normal pretty quickly.